Hey guys, it's me, Greed here. Listen, have you noticed the lack of community in Overwatch? Not necessarily as of late, but just in general. Seems as though no one can really agree on anything. Season 9 good, Season 9 bad. 5v5 good, 5v5 bad. Perks good, perks bad. New rank system good, new rank system bad. You know, it seems as though there was never any hard agreement. Now, obviously, that's going to be the case with everything. There is nothing in life where everyone agrees. However, it seems as though in Overwatch, people have... there are particularly larger percentages of people who disagree. Usually, with disagreements, there is a small minority of people who are very loud, and then there's a huge majority that generally agree and are pretty quiet because they all agree with each other. And that may be the case here, but it does not seem like it, because it seems as though Overwatch is split into like 1,000 different groups. And I want to go over this. Why is it that we have people that think 5v5 is good and 5v5 is bad? No, obviously that's a simple question. It's because some people think 5v5 is good and some people think 5v5 is bad. However, we in Overwatch 1 never ever had a discussion about whether 6v6 was the correct format. Not once. Never was there ever even a minor discussion about whether or not 6v6 was the correct path forward. Never. Never a mainstream debate, never anything, never any discussion. Weird. Why did it all start in Overwatch 2? Why did the complaining... No, obviously it was a thing prior to Overwatch 2, but why did it all start with Overwatch 2? Why did it become so huge in Overwatch 2? And a lot of people don't realize this, but the reason it became so huge is the same reason that role queue was so contested. It's because, let's say you build a game, okay? The game works this way, the fundamentals of the game are like this, and it behaves like this, and it's consistent like this, and it's built with this purpose. Alright, let's call all those variables X, for example, and then you make a big update where you change a third of those X variables to Y variables. And then all the people that are like the X variable are like, what the fuck? I don't like this new Y variable, change it. And then some other players come back, some new players join, and they go, we really like the Y variable, we want more Y variable. And then Blizzard says, oh fuck, we're in a situation where we need to make the people that like the X variable happy and the Y variable happy, but you can't add more Y variable because then that'll make the X variable people mad, and we can't add more X variable, or you know what I'm saying, right? I might repeat myself, but you know what I'm saying, right? So then they decide, okay, well then we'll add a Z variable, right? Something in the middle between both of them, where they can both kind of agree. They're not going to both entirely agree with it, but at least we're going to get something where they both kind of agree. So now we got this new Z variable. And then the X variable people, let's say half of them like the new Z variable, and the other half don't like it. And the same thing for the Y variable. Half of them like it, half of them don't like it. And then you have... well, then those groups split off again. So half the X variable become like a fucking G variable, and the other half of the Y variable becomes a B variable, and then all of a sudden, there's all these massive groups that all can't agree with each other because the game has gone through so many fundamental game changes that they all want to play a different game. Because the game that they went and joined and started playing doesn't exist anymore because of the amount of gameplay changes, the fundamental changes to the game that occurred. This happened during role queue. This was contentious. A role queue came out. A lot of people that were like, I fucking hate role queue prior to it coming out were like, you know what, actually, I quite like it. Some of the people that thought, I want role queue, tried it and went, actually, this shit kind of fucking sucks. And then, you know, there was obviously people who said, you know, this is trash, this is good. And then we created that Z variable where there was a part where they could meet in the middle, right? And then, obviously, people were agreeing, disagreeing, people were leaving, people were joining. And then Blizzard has to make a decision. Do we either try to add things or remove things based off of one group that will make the other group unhappy, or do we go for another solution where we're trying to meet them in the middle and make them both happy? Blizzard loses in both scenarios. There is absolutely no possible way to win that. If two groups disagree, now if the disagreement's relatively small, there you can meet in the middle to some degree, but if it's big, like a fundamental gameplay change, there's no meeting in the middle, because if you meet in the middle, you get a broken system that doesn't work entirely, because it's not implemented with one of those niches in mind, it's implemented with both of them in mind, and maybe it's not built for one group, so you have to change it so it works for that group, and then that breaks the fundamental change, which makes the other group unhappy. So, take roll queue, for example. If you were to implement it in a way that, for example, roll tickets. This is exactly what this was. For example, here we go. Roll queue releases, no one likes playing tank, they go, fuck. Okay, all the DPS players are mad, because their queue times are long, and all of the other players are fine. We need to make a change that makes it so the DPS players can get in the game faster. So they add roll tickets. And this was, sorry, queue tickets, I would say, rank tickets. And the way that they tried, their idea was, we're going to get some of these DPS players to move into the other roles to speed up the queue times for everyone. But you would think, oh, this is going to make everyone happy. Everyone's queue times will improve then. We'll have a more balance between all the roles. However, now on paper, this seems like something where the two groups have met in the middle. The roll queue people are happy because the queue times will speed up, and the open queue people are happy because the queue times will speed up. They go, okay, there we go, we found a solution that helps both groups of players. However, it didn't. It fucked them both over because they met in the middle. You cannot do that. It does not work. Because what happened was, all the DPS players that wanted fast queue times were queuing on tank and pick and hog and just playing DPS hog and flanking all day and smurfing all day because they don't play tank, so they're going to get in a gold game because they never played tank before in roll queue mode before, and they'd only played in open queue, so they're going to be a low rank depending on, I mean, sometimes you would place on the same elo as your main role on the other roles, sometimes, but sometimes you didn't. So these people would D-rank all the way down to gold, they'd pick hog, they'd play flank hog and smurf their wieners off and get like 70 kills a game, they get 7 tickets for their win, they play DPS for 7 games for their ticket, and then they'd repeat the cycle. And then that made no one happy. The open queue players were not happy because all the queue times were faster, the game quality fell off a fucking cliff, and the roll queue people weren't happy because of the same reason. And you're like, well, fuck, we couldn't find a solution that worked for both groups. Now apply this to every single major gameplay change that's ever released for Overwatch, and you quickly realize there is a reason no one disagrees. And it's because every patch, basically every patch, we are playing a fundamentally different game that does not interest some of the people involved anymore. I am a good example of this. When Roll Queue released, I was like, I don't actually really fucking like this is kind of lame, but I got used to it, okay? And over time, I realized, you know what, I actually quite like Roll Queue. You know, I like what it did. At the time, I didn't. And there are still benefits to open queue in my mind. However, I understand the benefits of roll queue, and I swapped sides, right? I think roll queue is better for the game. Then the other changes come at rank tickets. That was garbage. Terrible idea. Ruined ranked for everyone, okay? And then some other stuff happened, right? Like when they were buffing all the support heroes. Well, the support heroes were happy about it because then they didn't get dove so easily, so their jobs were easier. But then the DPS players hated it because, well, now you can't dive the supports anymore, so you don't really have a job on the dive heroes. So they were like, okay, well, we gotta pick a solution that meets in the middle. And what they did was, they basically just said, we'll buff the hit scans. That way, you don't need to dive the supports anymore, and you're still effective on a DPS hero. And then everyone was like, yeah, makes sense. And then a lot of people ended up hating that, because like, well, the hit scans are just way too broken now, because now they're also undivable, because they've got undivable supports next to them all day, so you can't really dive them, because then you're getting into like a 1v3, and you're never going to win that. So it just made dive heroes completely unplayable. And then they were like, oh fuck, we fucked the dive heroes. Okay, well, let's make another big gameplay change. And then they completely changed the game, and they ended up adding shit like Sigma. Well, Sigma was released with roll queue, but then they ended up changing them, and then they got double shield came in, and they got rid of it again, and then it came back, and it was just fucked, and they didn't know what they were doing. And they were like, okay, we're going to make a fresh start with Overwatch 2, because Overwatch 2 is coming out. And then they decided 5v5. Now, this is the most prolific gameplay change ever. Was it the biggest? Probably. Some may disagree, but generally, people will agree 5v5 was the biggest fundamental gameplay change. And look at that. You've split groups again. 6v6 crowd, 5v5 crowd. Now, they can't get along either. They don't like each other. They argue. They say, no, you're wrong. You're dumb. 6v6 crowd will come up and be like, well, look at this patch. Look at this patch. It was never debated in history. Everyone loved 6v6. There was never a moment when anyone ever considered a different format because it worked so well. 5v5 is like, no, tank synergy is too OP. I think it's too broken to mix certain tanks together. And they were like, okay, that's fine. We agree with certain tank synergies being kind of broken, like Arista Sigma, but you don't know why they were broken. Arista Sigma was broken because Brick and Bat were so good and they were anti-dive. And they were like, okay, yeah, but we still don't like shooting shields. And like, okay, well, we get that. We would obviously nerf some heroes, but Arista got, you know, changed, she doesn't have a shield anymore. And like, yeah, but then the Q times were bad in 6v6. And there's no agreement, right? No one can agree, and that's fine. But then, over time goes on, more gameplay change, and what started as Overwatch being a game for the X variable group that loved that game, that huge population, that X variable, right, that everyone loved, has now been split into a Y, a Z, a G, a B, and now Blizzard is trying to balance 50 different player groups to try to make them all happy, and it does not work. This is why the game has been falling and falling and falling. They cannot make a game that works for everyone. If you incorporate a feature or a gameplay change or whatever that goes in and caters to one of those groups, you hurt every other group. So Blizzard just has to accept they're not going to be able to make a game where they can please everyone and go back to that old X variable. Right? It's okay if you want to make some changes. It's okay to have 1 or 2 or 3 groups, 4 groups. There's a little bit of balancing you can do, and that's just a natural cycle of the game. People are going to agree and disagree and stuff. But you cannot have so many people. I mean, think of how many groups are in the game. There's hit scans are OP, hit scans aren't OP. Projectile heroes are OP, they're not OP. Tracer's OP, Tracer isn't OP. Ball's OP, Ball isn't OP. Supports are OP, supports aren't OP. 5v5 is broken, 5v5 isn't broken. 6v6 is good, new rank system is bad. Like, there are so many groups that are so tied to fundamental gameplay changes like Season 9 and so on, where absolutely none of them can agree, and it's because every single patch, they bleed a couple of old players, they get a couple of new players, they make a fundamental gameplay change, they bleed a couple of more old players and a couple of those old new players, and then they get a couple more, and they're just like trading in and out, and they're bleeding off their old player base that's been here for years, and they're trading them out for new players that are not going to stick around. And it's why Overwatch's numbers have been so bad. They would rather make a quick buck catering to new players than they would catering to the people who've been here for 9 years. It's been 9 years I've been on this boat, right? It's 9 years I've been trying to steer this ship in the right direction, and the fucking Blizzard people at Team 4 or the higher-ups, whatever it may be, are just grabbing that fucking wheel and are swinging it in all sorts of different directions. They're just cranking the fucking propeller to max speed. They're turning into fucking islands like they're Jack Sparrow or whatever, and they're fucking this game over and over and over again for the purpose of trying to cater to as many groups as possible. You cannot do that. Call of Duty tried to do that. What's happening to COD? Everyone thinks it's fucking dying. Every popular game in the last few years has tried to cater to absolutely everyone, and a game that caters to everyone caters to no one. So Overwatch needs to return to that X variable if they truly want Overwatch again, because right now I think it's disrespectful to the name Overwatch to call what we have today as Overwatch. I just want my game back. I love this game. I love it, even in its current state. I love the game. I love it, but I love the old game more, and I know how great this game can be, and that's what I want. I want the greatness back. So people call me a doomer, that's fine. People can call me whatever they want. But believe that if you want. But I don't doom because I just want to see the game fail. I doom because I've been here for 9 years. I've sunk over like 13,000 hours in this game. I studied this game. I would get home from school and immediately say, fuck the homework, we're going straight to Overwatch. I have to study the new comp. We have a scrim comp. That I loved this game. I was so deeply involved with this game, and to watch it slowly decay over time when it has so much potential still is so sad. And that's why I'm still here. I want this ship to get back on track. We were on the way to the golden sands, paradise. We were so close until they started fucking this boat, and now we're all the way back in the middle of the fucking storm again, and we're tipsy-turvy all over the place. Anyway, I love you. I hope you have a good day. Hope you're eating food, and I hope it's delicious. Have a good one. Bye-bye.